favorably. I'm sure he would tell you otherwise. He was with the company from day one. I did not know him the day the company started. He was brought to us by another individual in the company. We did vet him down. He's American, Patrick Oliver Kelly. Seemed to have very excellent connections politically in the United States and to finance companies worldwide. Seemed to know land development, so he looked like a benefit to bring in the company. We ran into some problems with Patrick over an insurance issue, which I'll get into later, and I asked him to resign from as a director of the insurance company in Bermuda. He wasn't happy about that. He moved to Germany. He was not attending meetings, even though at our request, even though we paid travel costs and a monthly stipend to the directors. And after 3 months, we had our lawyer send him a letter and said, you either have to fulfill your responsibilities as a director, or we will take a vote to have him taken off as a director. He didn't even respond to that, and the rest of the directors voted in the majority to have him removed from the company. So Patrick had a very bad taste in his mouth and had very good connections with some of our shareholders in Western Canada. He had been here to Asia and talked to Asian investors when the UDI programs were going. I don't know who he talked to. I don't know his itinerary. So he basically talked to a lot of our shareholders in Western Canada and decided in technical terms to start what would best be called a hostile takeover of the company, which means a takeover that we felt the directors and the rest of the company did not want. There was a lot of bad publicity over this in Western Canada especially. It was not on the airwaves, it wasn't in the paper, but it was, let's say, more of it was verbally, mouth to mouth over a coffee. And we did not have a good feel. There were blogs that came out and listings on Google with regards to people and personalities in the company and the company itself. We don't know who put them there. They put them on anonymously, and we couldn't even trace the websites back through our technical people. And our lawyers couldn't, because they used a series of websites worldwide to put this information on that was, to the most part, 95% incorrect. For example, they told people that myself and Von Miner were making $1 million a year and they're stealing $5 million a year out of it, and it was just ridiculous. Our auditors were an audited company. The auditors put those numbers straight and told people what we were making. Vaughn and I make $250,000 a year, not $1 million, and we've never taken any other money out of the company. So that's the type of things we were dealing with, and we spoke to our lawyers. Our lawyers recommended that we do not get into the mudslinging and answer all this negative comments that weren't incorrect out there, but obviously was coming from disenchanted shareholders, and we said, let's do a rescission. A rescission basically means most companies are forced into rescissions. When a company is going bankrupt, for example, or into receivership, then the securities commissions in Canada force them into a position where they have to offer a rescission to the shareholders. That means they determine a price and then say to the shareholder, we'll buy your share back for this price. We didn't do that. We did a voluntary rescission. We said to our shareholders in Canada, we'll buy your shares back. You have the option to buy your shares back over a 2-year period with interest at what you paid for them. In 2.5 years, I think it was 10 equal payments with interest at the end. Nominal amount of interest, I believe it was 2%. Or stay with the company. If you have faith in the company, we would recommend you stay with the company. So that rescission was done. The results of that were 14% of the shareholders decided to take the rescission, and 86% of the shareholders decided to stay with the company. So that's the position on the public side of the company with regards to that. And I know you're not interested in that, but I had to state that for the record. Shortly after the rescission, and didn't affect Asia as much as affected Canada, it affected our sales there for the time being until we got the rescission out of the way. The government in Canada came out last year in the summer and said that the way we sell product in Canada under the exempt market in Canada is going to be regulated under guidelines from the federal government. Basically, we had 60 salesmen employed by us in Western Canada that sold our product. And our company did not have to be regulated because it wasn't in the exempt market. You didn't require that. They came out with new laws, said the company has to go through regulation and the employees all have to go through licensing, testing, and regulation in order to sell it. And we said, well, if we have to do it, we have to do it. But at the same time, there were a number of new companies that started up that were going to become what they call exempt market dealers. They had to apply for the government, pass the exams, be accredited, and then they became exempt market dealers. There were about 7 of them at the time in Canada, and they were projected to have between 35 and 50 people who also had to go out and get licensed, take the tests. Essentially, it was similar to a broker. I don't know here in Singapore if you have brokers, but it's similar to what financial planners and brokers do in Canada. So as of September 28th last year, we made the decision not to license our company and lay off our sales staff, which most of them were going to end up in going to one of these exempt market dealers. The exempt market dealers didn't get off the queue as quickly as possible. It took them a long time to get registered. Some of them is very detailed. As you know, when you're dealing with the government, it's the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, a lot of investigation, due diligence. So they didn't get off as quickly as possible. Then it became a bidding war over all the agents that were out there that had to have their testing, had to be accredited and licensed. And some dealers were offering a better deal than others. So in essence, what happened, it took longer for them to get up and running in the way they were supposed to. The reason we went with that concept is that we would not only have just salespeople in Western Canada, we would have a national representation for our products right across Canada. And Ontario and Quebec are the biggest markets in Canada, not Alberta and BC and Saskatchewan, the western provinces. So we made that decision to get national distribution, and we would get more exposure because they would have more sales agents selling our product. But it took a long time for them to get going. The fall and the spring in Canada are our top selling periods because all our products qualify for RSP and TFS, which means that when you buy the product, it's a tax deduction when you buy the product. If you put $20,000 of Edgeworth product onto your registered retirement plan, that's a tax deduction for the year you're in. So that's why people in Canada put millions and billions of dollars into their RSP funds and their other funds that have the same benefit. So lo and behold, our cash revenues dropped dramatically in the fall and the spring. In Asia, we did have some problems. Certainly, I can tell you that there were 2 reasons. I think our people that sell our product in Asia are independent consultants. They don't work for us directly. They're not employees. So they're paid a commission or a royalty for what they sell. And a lot of those people switched to a different product that was apparently very hot at the time. I don't know a lot about it. My lawyer explained it to me this morning. It had something to do with gold speculation. There was a lot of money to be made at that, I guess, and a lot of people felt they'd make a lot more money at that than selling Edgeworth product. So our sales revenues went down in Asia. So we got hit particularly hard to the point that we knew we had goals and objectives we wanted to meet that we told Asians with regards to title issuance and with regards to some exits, 2 exits we were going to do this year, the first one the end of June. And we called in and retained experts in Canada, Grant Thornton LLP, that's a world-renowned accounting firm. We called in their restructuring people to do an analysis on the company and make the recommendations. We called in a legal firm called Fraser Milner Cosgrave. They're restructuring experts that also came in and worked in conjunction with Grant Thornton. The net result was they came in and went through our company from bottom to top. They did pro formas on every piece of property we have. They did analysis, and they came up with a recommendation. They said, this company has to be restructured. We said, okay, what do you mean by restructuring? They said, look, you got 20 pieces of land in Alberta. You guys have enough land for the next 20 years to develop out and get returns on it. And we said, that's fine, but the cost of the developments are huge. For example, we own property in downtown Fort McMurray. They want us to develop it right away, but the cost is $55 million to build the development over 3 years, although at the end of 3 years, it could be sold for as much as $100 million. You can nearly double your money. The problem was, we got to get $55 million we don't have. And we said, okay, restructuring experts, how do we do that? And they said, this is how you do it. You go out and talk to equity partners, specifically in Canada, because they understand the development in Alberta and whatnot. If you go to Europe, go to Asia, they may not understand land in Alberta and smaller towns in Alberta and things like that. So go to the Canadian market and find equity partners that will invest money into Edgeworth to develop out these properties. And we did. We talked to some 23 equity partners, 6 of which are still talking to us and doing their due diligence, and at least 2 have given us confidence that they want to progress with the company. There's a hitch to that, though. The other side of it was that the experts also said, find a vehicle that can bring equity into it that's independent of Edgeworth, but can be used to develop Edgeworth land if the land goes into this vehicle. A mutual fund trust. And that's what Wayne's going to be reporting to you in detail. I'll stay with Edgeworth because I know many of you are terribly upset, if not all of you, that we've only issued titles on 3 of the 12 properties. Comes down to very simple and pure economics. We don't have the money to clear the encumbrances on the next set of properties to issue titles. And that reason was because we couldn't entice an equity partner that wanted to come into the company to pay those mortgages off so we could issue titles. The equity partner said, look, we love your land, we want to put money in to develop it, but why should we put money into Edgeworth when the titles are going to go into Asian investors' hands and we're going to pump millions into develop these properties when we're going to see very little in return? It doesn't make sense. We're not going to invest on that basis. Whether it be our own lot programs, whether it be the UDI programs or our condo programs that are slated, they had the same opinion on everything. They love our land, they want to develop it. Some lands aren't as well off as others, but the forecast they showed that we have enough property for the next 20 years to develop it out, and there's hundreds of millions of dollars to be unlocked in the way of profit. The problem is you need hundreds of millions of dollars to develop out these properties, and if the equity partners won't supply the money, then that's a real problem. We do have the shareholders in Canada, the investors in Canada. We've talked to our creditors that hold mortgages and whatnot. Everybody is on side with Edgeworth and doing what they can to keep this company in a position where we can then go to this new restructuring plan to start all this. So everybody's been very cooperative in Canada. The one group we haven't talked to is the Asian group. And that's why I'm here, to talk to the Asian group and show you our new restructuring plan. So we're not in the position to honor our commitment on titles. We're not in the position to honor the exit strategies we said we were going to do. That's our fault. It's purely because we don't have a lack of funds to do it and can't acquire